Hello everybody, welcome to the recorded version of the webinar Cracking the Code How to Get Hired in the Competitive World of Pharma Biotech, and I'm the speaker, and originally this was hosted by me and Dr. Chakravarthi Mohan on Saturday, June 8th. So this is a recorded version of the same webinar. So a little bit about me. Hi, I'm Snehal, and a little bit about my background on the slide. As you can see, I have a bachelor's in pharmacy from India, and then I came to the United States. I did my PhD in 2015, and since then I have worked as a scientist at different companies, mainly in the early discovery, bioassay, formulation development, analytical development departments. And I have also worked as a regulatory writer with companies such as Becton Dickinson, and then companies such as Stryker, Nuvasiv, through RQM Plus, mainly writing documentation for pharmaceuticals, medical devices, and diagnostics. And currently, I'm heading my own venture, UpSkillRx, where I help life science professionals successfully navigate different types of career transitions. So, what does UpskillRx do? With UpskillRx, I'm aiming to um, build a platform which is only for life science professionals and which helps them to make different types of career transitions, such as the academia to industry transition, or transitions for career growth, or for professionals who are joining the workforce back after a break, or for professionals who want to make track changes, like someone who wants to move away from the laboratory, or a clinician who may want to enter research, and so on. So, in terms of Upskill RX, since I have industry experience, I provide an industry perspective. I work with clients, introduce them to new opportunities, new areas of work which they might not be aware of and which might be more suited for their skill set. I help with resume and interviewing skills, and I also provide some power skills training. So let's come to our webinar today. So what we talked about was how to get hired in the biotech pharma industry, right? So some of the questions that I'll be addressing in this webinar are as follows. Is biotech pharma the next big thing? What is the academia to industry skill gap? How to upskill for core jobs in the pharma biotech industry? What is skill matching? How to be an expert in your niche? What to look for in a job description? What are soft skills? And why is networking so important, right? So let's dive into that. So let's not waste any more time and jump right into the heart of today's discussion. The first big question is a timely one. Is biotech pharma poised to be the next major force in the future? So let us take a look at the biotech pharma sector in the United States. As you can see, the biotech pharma sector deals with several key important therapeutic areas such as oncology, neurology, infectious diseases, immunology, cardiovascular diseases, metabolic disorders, rare diseases, and vaccines. Note that many candidates in each of these therapeutic areas are now biologicals, that is, proteins or nucleic acids. So the role of biotech in traditional pharma is increasingly becoming important. On the right side, you can see the key players in the pharma biotech sector in the US, and this includes companies such as Johnson & Johnson, Merck, Bristol Myers Squibb, GSK, Novartis, and so on. So these are the key players who are deciding the landscape of pharma biotech in the US. But I also have to say that the US landscape for newer therapies is also very much open to breakthrough innovations from small startups. For instance, BioNTech, which started in Europe as a startup using mRNA technology, opened an office in San Diego, and since the COVID-19 pandemic has become a key player in vaccine development, right? So large corporations as well as startups in the United States show promise for good opportunities. Now this slide shows some published numbers for drug pipelines for companies such as Pfizer, Sanofi, Novartis, GSK, and J&J. You can see that most of these pharma biotech companies have anywhere between 70 to 100 drugs that are undergoing clinical trials or waiting for regulatory approvals. This should give you an idea of how much work is being done in clinical development, manufacturing, regulatory affairs, medical communications, and post-market surveillance areas, right? Also, a lot of work should be also being done in the manufacturing sector and quality control, just based on these numbers. So point to note here are that these numbers are published on company websites and are freely available, but they do not include the number of compounds that are currently in early discovery, preclinical studies or CMC phase, which means that the pipeline is even bigger than we think, and so opportunities are definitely available. So what are these early unpublished drug pipelines working on in the United States? To understand that, we need to take a look at some key innovation areas that US companies are currently targeting. One of the most promising and upcoming areas for innovation currently in the US is gene therapy. Research, design, and development of gene therapy products mandates hiring of professionals who are proficient in techniques such as CRISPR, gene editing, multiomics like proteomics, metabolomics, genetic sequencing, uh, professionals who are very skilled in the use of stem cells and who are familiar with AI and or machine learning for predictive modeling. Another upcoming area in the US is precision medicine, wherein efforts are being made to customize medicine as much as possible based on individual genotypic and phenotypic differences. And this area encompasses R&D efforts in the fields of biomarker development for tumors, for example, and hematologic malignancies, as well as improved diagnostic markers. Another area that has gained great traction after the COVID-19 pandemic is the development of vaccines. The pandemic has proved to the world that we need to be prepared to develop vaccines for a wide variety of antigens and at short notice too. Also, mRNA technology has revolutionized vaccine development. Apart from mRNA technology, areas such as adjuvant development, bioconjugation, adenoviral therapy are all hot areas of R&D right now. In terms of product, the most innovative products currently on the US market are all the traditional biologicals and biosimilars, cells, genes, novel engineered products, and vaccines. Now, since the majority of audience in the webinar is from India, I want to take a look at the pharmaceutical industry in India as well. In the next decade, the total costs involved in the pharmaceutical industry in India are expected to double from about 50 to 65 billion right now to almost 130 billion. So there is a good projected growth. Also, currently the Indian pharma industry is leading the world in the production of generic drugs and low price vaccines, not only in-house, but also for export to the Europe, US, and Africa. Also, as seen in the map of India, a lot of R&D clusters and bulk drug manufacturing units are coming up, especially in the western and southern parts of India. And as opposed to the US sector, where the key drivers are innovation right now, in India, the stress is on affordability of drugs. So both factors are important but different. So they drive growth in different directions. So in terms of just the pharmaceutical industry in India, the key areas right now for growth and opportunity are vaccine development and manufacturing, generic drug manufacturing and quality control, as well as biosimilar manufacturing and quality control. Now let's take a look at the biologics industry in India. The Indian bioeconomy is projected to almost triple in the next decade by growing from about 93 billion to almost 300 billion in worth. Some of the major cities which are upcoming centers for biotech research are shown on the map of India. And if you take a look at the key players in the biotech industry, you can see that almost all of the major traditional pharma players in India have already entered the biotech arena. A few more facts on how biotech is growing in India. From the graph on this slide, you can see that all of the relevant technologies are projected to become increasingly important in the biotech market in the next decade. These include technologies such as cell-based assays, HPLCs, PCR, DNA, and RNA sequencing, as well as nanotechnology. Also, the Indian government is slowly but surely taking concrete steps to build a sound infrastructural foundation for biotech research in India. So, I think looking at the fact and numbers, it is safe to say that biotech pharma is here to stay and grow. So, opportunities in biotech and pharma will continue to be available.
So let's take a look at a very critical conundrum that most of you in the audience have. If, according to the facts and figures, biotech or pharma is a growing field, why can't more people leverage these opportunities? The answer is because there is an obvious gap between what available talent has to offer and what the pharma biotech industry needs to succeed. This skill gap is very real, and all of us have faced this gap at some point. So let us discuss this issue a little further here. So, like I said, there is a demand for skilled talent in the pharma biotech industry. However, there is also a shortage of talent that comes from academia, especially. Most importantly, both sides are unaware of the skill gap, and hence no special efforts are taken to bridge this gap. This is what makes the academia to industry transition a rather difficult one in the pharma biotech sector across the globe. So, what is the skill gap that I'm talking about? It is a set of expectations, skills, and techniques that are different for the academia and the industry. For instance, let us take a look at what an academic degree empowers us with. Any academic degree in life sciences will introduce the student to important theoretical concepts, introduce the fundamentals of laboratory techniques, basic regulatory principles, maybe give an introduction to clinical trials, and imbibe basic communication skills. And contrary to the common misconception that an advanced degree prepares you better for the industry, a master's or PhD degree will only enhance your knowledge base in a particular area. It will far from prepare you for the industry. Thus, the goal of any academic degree is to impart fundamental or advanced knowledge in the concerned field and to introduce the student to critical thinking and analytical reasoning skills. Now, what the industry actually expects from employees is considerably different. The goal of any industrial hiring team is to select the candidates that will solve any expected problems, save resources, and advance current projects. So, the industry expects you to not only have fundamental knowledge in your field, but also know how to apply this knowledge to solve critical problems, maybe even on a daily basis. For instance, it is not enough to just know the working principles and daily working of an analytical instrument. To work in the industry, you also need to anticipate how this particular instrument can break down or give erroneous data or fail to comply with regulatory standards, followed by troubleshooting ideas to counteract these. So, this is the academia to industry skills gap. So the skill gap between academia and industry definitely exists. Unfortunately, nobody talks about this gap or takes efforts to bridge it. Neither academia does it, nor the industry does it. And the skill gap is one of the major reasons fresh graduates at any level, from bachelor's to PhD and even postdocs, feel that they lack the correct set of skills needed for the job, or that nobody wants to hire them. However, bridging this gap is the only solution to increase your chances of getting hired. So I'm going to propose a 7-point plan for this and talk about it more in the coming slides. So this is the 7-point plan for upskilling that each of you need to follow to gain a good standing in the pharma biotech job market. So let us see each of the points in this plan. So the first point is learn how the pharma biotech industry works. Match your skills to what is happening in the industry and find your niche. Gain expertise in your niche. Emerge as a leader in your niche. Know and focus the jobs that you're applying to. Work on your soft skills and your representation. Learn to build a professional network and always have backup plans ready. So let us take a closer look at how the biotech pharma industry works. If you plan to join this industry and become a part of it, it follows that you should be familiar with its inner workings. So let us see how you can upskill in this area. Okay, so one of the basic things that you need to know is the drug development cycle. What is the drug development cycle? It is the journey that a molecule takes to become a drug. Some of the key features of this process are: it is an extremely lengthy process, it is a highly regulated and rigorously scientific process, it is a multidisciplinary process, so different branches of science come together to build this process. It is an extremely expensive process, and the rate of failure is very high. The chance of failure are high, so it is also a very high risk process. Nowadays, it is a global phenomenon. It takes place in different geographical regions at the same time. It is constantly evolving, and in spite of the fact that it is lengthy and expensive and highly regulated, this process is required because it is critical for patients. So the best way to visualize the drug development cycle is to imagine a funnel at the top of which thousands of molecules enter, and these molecules are filtered at each stage until one or at the most two candidates develop into an actual medicine or drug. So remember, the drug development process is an elimination focused process. The goal is to eliminate anything that fails on the efficacy, safety, or infrastructural radar and allow the rest to pass to the next stage. So in the early stages of drug development, literally thousands of molecules are screened against a disease target, but only one among these thousands actually becomes a drug product. As you can see, this very characteristic makes this process tedious, lengthy, expensive, and prone to high failure rate. However, is the process worth it? Absolutely, because the lives of thousands of patients depends on it. So, let's look at the drug development process in more detail. As you can see, the major stages of this process are early discovery, preclinical development, chemistry, manufacturing and control, also known as CMC, clinical development, regulatory approvals, and post-market surveillance. So let's quickly take a look at each of these phases. The goal of early discovery is to identify disease targets such as a specific receptor or a virus or a cell signaling protein or a neural network. Once this disease target is identified and validated, thousands of molecules are screened against this target, and those with promise are filtered out as hits. These hits are further subjected to more screening, and eventually a few are chosen as lead molecules and transferred to the next stage. Preclinical development then takes these lead compounds and determines if they work as expected in cell and animal models. Also, compounds which show poor performance or high toxicity early on are eliminated, and the rest are moved to the CMC phase. The CMC teams then take these lead compounds and perform physicochemical characterization to know more about them, like their structure, for example. Formulations are developed, and the stability of these lead molecules in these formulations is studied. Anything that will help the lead compound remain stable in the formulation is tried, and depending on the formulation, a dose is decided. The leads which show stability issues are eliminated, and then the chosen leads move to the clinical phase where they will now be tried in human subjects. Clinical trials monitor the side effects of the drug, and may ask CMC to reevaluate the formulation or dose based on their results. Only one or at the most two leads will reach actual clinical trials, phase 3. Following clinical trials, all the preclinical, CMC, and clinical data is collected, analyzed, and organized for regulatory submissions to agencies such as the FDA. Regulatory scientists ensure that the data is pertinent, sufficient, and convincing enough for the FDA to give them approval for marketing this drug. Again, this process may be bidirectional at times, with the FDA asking questions and doubts, although that is never considered a very good sign. The final stage of the drug development cycle is the post-market surveillance phase, where the marketed drug is monitored for efficacy and safety. This phase has its own significance, and there are many examples of drugs which have performed excellent in clinical trials but failed in larger human populations or when used over a longer period of time. Kind of overseeing all these phases are some departments such as analytical development, which oversees method development, troubleshooting throughout the cycle. Similar to this is process development, which streamlines processes throughout the drug development cycle. And not to forget the QA/QC teams, which become more and more important as the product moves from early discovery to post-market surveillance. So So you can see that each phases of the drug development cycle is a piece of the big jigsaw puzzle that a new drug product is. Each phase has its own goals, nature of work, skills needed, and work environment. For instance, skills needed in early discovery are bioinformatics, computational biology, medicinal chemistry, data analysis. Versus in preclinical development, scientists need to be comfortable working with animal models, cell lines, and tissues. CMC scientists are more chemists by nature, whereas clinical development will often have scientists who have been physicians in a prior life. So you can see that each phase has its own needs and requirements, and yet they all work together to achieve the ultimate goal of a drug reaching a patient. So let us take a look at what skills are needed for each phase in the next slide. So how can you upskill for getting hired in the core drug development areas? Let's take a look at this, right? For getting hired in the early discovery department, upskilling will usually involve getting familiar with programming languages such as Python, R, C, Java, SQL, and MATLAB. It is also a good idea to familiarize yourself with genomic and proteomic databases such as PubChem, ChemBL, BioGrid, PDB, Zinc20. All of these databases are available online and are free. When you start working inside a company, you will get access to confidential databases that the company owns. But these free databases are a good way to get yourself acquainted with how genomic and proteomic databases look like. Thirdly, it is necessary to deep dive into relevant scientific literature by reading articles from journals like Nature Reviews, Drug Discovery, Journal of Medicinal Chemistry, and so on. Also, taking basic courses in machine learning will introduce you to the concepts of regression algorithms, classification algorithms, QSR, molecular docking. Also, prepare a sound knowledge base in analytical techniques that you may be asked to use, such as cell culture or ELISA or PCR or gene sequencing. So remember that you have to go beyond the theoretical knowledge and you have to gain knowledge in terms of what the industry is looking for. Now let's see what you can do to upskill for opportunities in preclinical development. Get well versed with introductory anatomy, physiology, pharmacology, toxicology concepts for humans as well as animal models. Read relevant scientific journals and scientific articles to understand what current research is going on. Also, introduce yourself to pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamic concepts, and cell signaling pathways. Develop a solid knowledge base in analytical techniques, especially ELISAs, Western blots, protein analysis, which you will be doing a lot. And if you want, you can use virtual simulations and online courses to go or rather deep dive into these topics, get into depth. Now, if you're looking for a job in CMC, let's take a look at what upskilling will look like for this particular zone. Firstly, you will need to be really well versed with a host of analytical techniques such as chromatography, spectroscopy, calorimetry. Secondly, you will need to introduce yourself to concepts such as quality by design, experimental design, and formulation concepts such as pre-formulation, formulation development, force degradation, uh, in-use stability studies, comparability studies. Also, it is important to know what are important formulation milestones, and usually this information can all be achieved from reading good books about formulation development. Understanding the lyophilization process is very helpful because most of the biologics will either be in liquid form or as lyophilized powders. So lyophilization knowledge will be invaluable. Introduction to software such as JUMP and SAS, which have free versions for statistical analysis and trending, as well as being comfortable with using free versions of Spotfire, Tableau, and Excel for data visualization are also important. And lastly, if you're up to it, you can also look at certifications such as the Lean Six Sigma, which might be helpful. Now, if you're looking for jobs in clinical research, what kind of upskilling should you be looking at? So familiarity with good clinical practices and ICH guidelines is absolutely essential, because these are kind of the pipels on which clinical research runs. Introduction to how clinical trials are designed and executed, absolutely essential. Familiarity with using databases such as clinicaltrials.gov and the Cochrane library and PubMed. A very good handle on biostatistics, because you will need to use a lot of biostatistics when you're handling clinical data. Project management certifications, because a lot of clinical trials are now on a global scale, so you'll be working with especially if you are in clinical trial coordinations or monitoring, you'll be working with teams from different geographical regions, so project management skills become very important. And then there are certifications from the Association of Clinical Research Professionals. You can also take a look at these certifications. Lastly, if you're going to work in regulatory affairs, this is a guideline for what you should be comfortable with when you want to get hired. So as I mentioned before, pharma biotech is one of the most highly regulated industries in the world, and everything proceeds according to regulation, right? So it is a good idea to know core regulatory guidelines which come from good manufacturing practices and good clinical practices. Depending on whether you will work in the lab or in other areas, you might need to know good laboratory practices or GXP, like different regulations for pharmacovigilance, for example. It is a good idea to familiarize yourself with the US FDA website and the ICH guidelines, right? Because all of the industry efforts are kind of directed towards gaining regulatory approvals, right? So it is a good idea to familiarize yourself with FDA and ICH. And also, if you plan to work in clinical development or RA, knowledge of ICH guidelines is very critical, because that will help you in harmonizing different practices across different geographical regions. You will have a greater understanding of how that is done. Lastly, if working in core drug development areas, it is important to familiarize yourself with the structure and framework of regulatory submissions like the INDA, NDA, ANDA, BLA, and also clinical trial data. So this is just a summary slide of what we discussed in terms of upskilling for all the drug development phases. So hopefully now you have a better idea of how the pharma biotech industry works. And I have to say that this is a vast area, and it cannot be summed up in a few slides, but hopefully I gave you enough of a taste to explore more. If you do decide to explore more, contact me. I can send you the names of some books, certifications. Also, I will come up with some webinars related to each of these topics in depth. If you need to upskill for an upcoming interview, just connect with me for a one-on-one session and we can get some of these topics covered in detail. So now let us talk about skill matching. It is one of the most crucial upskilling techniques that you can learn. Many of my clients tell me I don't have any skills or I don't have enough skills. And I always say, of course you do. You just don't know it. So let's bust the skill myth today and talk about how to discover your skills. So first, let us talk about technical skills. These are skills that you have learned in academia or previous workplaces and that you can use to do different or particular types of jobs. So these are practical job specific skills. So first exercise is to list out all your technical skills and then to classify them as primary, secondary or tertiary depending on your level of expertise. So your primary skills will be your premium expertise, your biggest selling point followed by secondary skills and then tertiary skills. Also list out new skills which you may want to learn and include them in the upcoming upskilling section, right? The next step in skill matching is to find your niche, right? So you have to answer some of the following questions. Where do I see myself in the drug development cycle? So which stage matches my primary and secondary skills? And do I have skills that can be used at multiple levels in the drug development process? Also, do my technical skills match my interests? Where do I see myself working long time? For instance, where do I see myself after 1 year versus 5 years versus 10 years? And then Note down your upskilling needs. Now that you know which type of industry jobs you may be targeting, you will need to work on the next skill, which is like one of the most critical step of skill building, and that is converting a skill to an application. So a skill is the ability to perform a certain task successfully, whereas an application is the ability to use that skill for desirable results. So academia teaches you skills and industry expects you to know the applications. Once you find your niche, you can work on converting each of the skills into an industry application. And I will tell you an example of how that is done. So let us take a look at a common biotech skill, which is polymerase chain reaction. Usually, an academic degree should equip you with the fundamental knowledge about the technique, basic laboratory experience on how to perform PCR, get the data, and analyze it. Right? Now, for an industry position, upskilling with respect to the skill will involve reading about it in books, current scientific papers, and the internet. If possible, attending or looking at recorded versions of conferences, workshops, webinars, and working with a coach to understand how you can present it on your resume and in interviews. After this upskilling effort, I promise you that you will never write on your resume that you can just do PCR. PCR will be in your skills section, and what you will be writing is I can perform the mycoplasma detection assay, or the viral load detection assay, or the host cell impurity detection assay, or a residual cell substrate assay, because all these assays are based on PCR. So right here, right now, you converted your skill, which is doing PCR, into an industry application. So that is how you take up all of your technical skills, do your homework, and convert them into a technical toolbox of industry specific applications. I would highly recommend working with a career coach or a mentor for this process, and trust me, this process works. It will give you results. Let's address the next challenge in the skills section. A lot of my clients come up to me and say, I have no industry specific skills. What should I do? My answer is you already have a ton of skills that you can transfer to your industrial workplace. These are your transferable skills. They are not technical skills. Essentially, you can call them life skills because you learn them in everyday life, but they can be applied to any workplace. Some of the transferable skills that are especially applicable to the industry are project management, budgeting, critical thinking, time management, mentoring, teamwork, writing skills, and problem solving skills. So, how to identify your transferable skills? Think about all the good and bad experiences you had in your life. Which were enjoyable for you and why? Which experiences were challenging? Think about what kind of worker or employee you want to be. What do you believe is the most important quality for you as an employee? What are your thoughts on morals and ethics in the workplace? What do you think is the ideal way to get out of conflicts? List all the personal and professional challenges you have faced. List down what you learned from each challenge, where you fell short. Can you face similar challenges in the current job that you're looking for? If yes, what will be your attitude towards solving them? And lastly, if you're a part of any sports team, fraternity, or volunteer organization, think about why you joined it and what qualities you can carry over from that kind of opportunity to your professional work. Answers to these questions should give you a list of skills that you can apply to any job that you intend to do in the future. Do not forget to mention these skills in your resume or talk about them in interviews. So, like I said, do not underestimate the power of transferable skills. Advertise them, they should generate interest about you as a person. Now, we talked about identifying skills on your niche area. The next question is how to build on this skill set or niche so that you can emerge as an expert. Let's briefly address that. So one way to build your expertise in an area is to deep dive into scientific literature. Your niche area can be a disease class, a drug product, an analytical or other technique, or a novel technology. So read old and new scientific papers related to it, gather and read textbooks, look for good online courses, tutorials, virtual simulations, podcasts, anything that will help you build fundamental knowledge and keep you updated about current events in that particular area. Another important step in emerging as an expert is to connect with people who work in the field. These people can guide you to the correct literature or videos, for example. Also, plan to attend conferences, webinars, workshops, talks, etc. in your niche area. This is where you will find others like you, and it will give you a sense of who in the scientific it will give you a sense of the scientific community, and also tell you who your future colleagues may be. If possible, find an expert in the field who is willing to guide and help you, and also gather complementary knowledge. For instance, analysis of most research data requires a sound knowledge of statistics. So, being good at statistical methods is gathering complementary knowledge. Lastly, keep looking for opportunities to get hands-on experience in your niche area. Not only will this reflect positively on your resume, but it will also give you tremendous confidence about your skills. So look for relevant internships, volunteer opportunities, attend any laboratory workshops or industrial demonstrations if they are locally accessible. One word of advice is stay true to what you really want. Grabbing any and all opportunities that come your way might not be a good idea. Think long term about how you will build your profile in a particular area and then use available opportunities accordingly. Lastly, any experience you gain, keep a habit of recording what you learned on a daily or weekly basis. If possible, publish a blog or a website to document and showcase your experiences. Now, let us talk about what to look for in a job opportunity or a job posting. So, before that, I wanted to look at what jobs are available in the pharma biotech sector, right? The most common misconception is that the pharma biotech sector only hires scientists. Contrary to the popular belief that you can only get hired as a scientist, you can see that there is a plethora of different job opportunities available at each stage of drug development. So, depending on where your expertise lies, you can apply to several different types of jobs. So the first step in searching for opportunities is to understand the anatomy of a job description. A job description or posting is an announcement that a team or a company or an organization has a vacancy for some type of skills that the current team members are unable to perform, either because they lack the correct skills, or they lack the bandwidth to do that work, or there is an unavailability of an employee. So a typical job description starts by giving the position title and name of the hiring department. Sometimes it may be followed by a salary range in some areas, like in California, for example, a brief paragraph about the company, followed by the most important thing, which is the responsibility and key functions that are expected to be performed in the job, followed by the qualifications that the company thinks are needed to do the job. This may be followed by benefits and perks, information on how to put an application, and keywords, and then in some areas, diversity and inclusion statements. So at first glance, the three four things that you need to pay attention to are the keywords, job title, the responsibilities, and qualifications. And that should enable you to shortlist that opportunity if you're really interested in it. Once you have your list of shortlisted opportunities, the next thing to do is match your resume to each of the detailed job descriptions, right? So how do you do that? So check out the keywords. Do they align with your skills? Does the job title and or department clearly specify which stage of drug development they are working on or they need the employee for? Which skills are absolutely needed to do this job? And do the required qualifications match the responsibilities? Is the job description crystal clear, or it is vague? It confuses you. Is contact information available for the hiring manager or HR? And what soft skills do they want for this job? So after this exercise, you will have a filtered list of opportunities which you believe are a good match, and then you can proceed to the application phase. Researching the company or organization is a step you can either do during your job search or after you get an interview opportunity. In any case, it is important to know more about the company where you have plans to work. So, how do you research or get to know more about a company? First, hit the company website, check out the products and services, the drug pipeline, innovation areas, career page, etc. Next, check what they have recently posted on social media, such as LinkedIn or Twitter. That will give you an idea about their company culture, their employee engagement, what is their standing in the industry, for example. Next, search if there are any recent news related to the company. uh, Check out recent scientific articles that they may have published. Also take a look at what current clinical trials they are doing. It will give you a good picture of the current work that they are pursuing. If you're planning to interview or already have, you may want to reach out to other employees on job platforms. You can also talk to formal employees. Just be careful to be polite and professional while probing for information. Also, websites such as Glassdoor and Indeed can help you here. If the company is small or a startup, it might be a good idea to check their financial health as well, such as how much funding they have or how much they are planning to raise. And lastly, after gathering all this information, consider the why. Why does this company interest me? Do the company values align with my values and morals? Do I believe in their product? Can I see myself working here a long time and growing? Try to answer these kinds of questions. Okay, now let's move on to the next section, which is soft skills development. So, what are soft skills? Soft skills are personal attributes that enable you to interact effectively and harmoniously with others. They are often referred to as interpersonal skills or people skills. Unlike hard skills, which are specific, teachable abilities related to a particular job or task, soft skills are more about personality and social intelligence. So, here's a breakdown of why soft skills are so valuable. Soft skills are important for successful collaborations and teamwork. Most jobs today require working effectively with colleagues on projects, so soft skills such as communication, interpersonal skills, and problem solving are essential for successful collaborations. The modern workplace is constantly evolving, and employees with strong skills such as adaptability, willingness to learn, and emotional intelligence can adjust to new situations, right? And new technologies more easily, and this makes them more valuable. Soft skills like empathy, active listening, conflict resolution can contribute to a positive and productive work environment. And this reduces stress, improves communication, and can lead to higher employee satisfaction and retention. Many roles involve interacting with clients or customers, so soft skills like clear communication, active listening, and patience are crucial. And while not all roles require formal leadership, soft skills like initiative, problem solving, and the ability to motivate others are valuable in any team, and that is usually how potential leaders are identified. So here is a list of some soft skills that are highly valued in the workplace. Again, we may need to do a different webinar just to deep dive into all of these soft skills and their development. But today I'm going to briefly talk about communication skills because in terms of interviewing, they are extremely important. Now, before we talk about communication skills, just wanted to point out that among all the soft skills that we just listed, the four skills that you can actually demonstrate and talk about in interviews are communication skills, problem solving skills, initiative, and responsibility. But like I said, if we want to deep dive, we will need much more time, and we are not going to do that in this webinar. So let's talk about communication skills. It has been stressed time and again by hiring managers that candidates with excellent communication skills get hired the fastest. This is because the ability to communicate well indicates that the employee will be able to communicate scientific results in a clear and concise way to other team members or interdepartmental colleagues. These skills are also essential when funding for research or clinical trial needs to be secured or communication with regulatory agencies needs to be done. Communication skills are essential for delivering high quality presentations, which are again an inevitable part of working in the industry. So, a candidate who can communicate well via oral, written, or visual skills will stand out by a mile. He or she will always get an increased visibility in the organization and will be considered early on for promotions and leadership opportunities. So let us take a look at communicating via speech. Think of presentations, talks, group meetings, all hands meetings, conferences, and workshops where you need to talk to a larger audience. Also consider crucial one-on-one meetings, such as meetings with your manager, with venture capitalists for funds, talking to CMOs, CROs, managing vendors, and giving interviews. These are all instances where you will be communicating via speech, and there are certain tips that I can give you to flawlessly finish these interactions. Firstly, for larger and planned presentations, practice is key. Practicing what you have to say increases your confidence and lessens the probability of missing out on key points at the last minute. Secondly, work on your delivery, that is your tone, speed of talking, fluency of language, and eye contact with the audiences. Thirdly, structure your talk so that the ideas presented have a natural flow. Use your storytelling skills to keep your audience engaged. Now, it is expected that audience attention will wander, especially if you're talking about complex ideas. So, keep the audience in the loop, include jokes in between, take water breaks, and ask for questions. Lastly, work on stage fright if you have any. Practicing will also take care of this to a certain extent. Now let's talk about communicating through the written word. This is a very crucial skill since a lot of communication with your colleagues as well as with uh, people outside the company will be through the written word. These communications include everything from the emails you write in the workplace to regulatory documentation that may be submitted to the FDA. Some key points to remember are that structure, grammar, and the tone of your writing play key roles in professional writing communications. Again, this is a vast topic and it is beyond the scope of today's discussion to go into a lot of details. Another important communication skills for life science professionals is the ability to prepare clear, elegant, and professional slide decks for communicating scientific or experimental results. Presenting scientific data is something scientists in all life science streams do on an almost daily basis. Since this skill is so commonly used, most employers will want to ensure that the candidate they hire is efficient at preparing and presenting slide decks. Hence, most job opportunities that need master's or higher level education or higher responsibilities will ask the candidate to prepare a short presentation as a part of the interview. So it is a good idea to practice this skill early on, especially if you are aiming for scientist roles. And some tips for preparing high quality presentations are to use a simple and clear design, keep it consistent, use high quality images and graphics, make the slides very less crowded, use effective color palettes, and master different kinds of presentation softwares. Okay, now let's touch another important area where most professionals need upskilling, your resume and cover letter. Again, this is a topic so vast that we can easily do a 1 hour webinar on just how to work on your resume and cover letter. But here I will briefly touch the key points. For your resume, always ensure that it has a flow and tells your story. Never lie or exaggerate about your skills, no matter how tempting it is. Stick to what you know. Also, do not try to hide anything, like career breaks, for instance. Be consistent between your headline and the content, between your skills section and actual research experience. Make sure that there are no discrepancies. For instance, I always see a huge number of skills listed in the skills section, but I never get to see how they were actually used in terms of research or work experience. Customize your resume to a job opportunity, but do it carefully and within limits. Do not change the gist of who you are or what you're looking for. As far as possible, try to talk about your achievements in terms of the results that were obtained rather than theoretical or vague description. Include keywords, list all your achievements, and always have an eye-catching skills section. Your cover letter should be a slightly more personalized and more relaxed version of your professional journey. This is the place where you can justify some hard to explain points on your resume, such as career breaks. Also, this is the place where you can elegantly build connections between your goals, your skills, and the job at hand. While writing a cover letter, always open with a direct and a positive note. Do not wait to express your goals halfway through the letter. Make your intentions very clear that you want the job and you're a good fit. Keep the letter brief and avoid giving too much personal information or stories. Keep the tone polite. Then that's it for now. If you want to work more on your resume and cover letter, contact me and we can do a one-on-one session. Now, another aspect I wanted to briefly touch under the umbrella of soft skills are interviewing skills. Again, knowledge of interviewing skills is a vast topic that cannot be entirely touched here. Also, developing these skills requires practice, and it's best if you work with a mentor or career coach if you find this area hard to cross. So, what makes an interviewee or a job aspirant stand out from the crowd? Knowledge. If you possess genuine and solid knowledge of a subject, it will show in your answers. Trust me on this. People think I can read and cram overnight and then confidently talk about it in interviews. You will be caught, and you will be miles away from a candidate who has genuinely worked hard on gaining knowledge. Confidence. Employers want candidates who are confident about what they bring to the table and what they want from the job. This makes communications clear and easy early on and is taken as a very good sign. Communication skills, like we discussed before, can't stress the importance of these. A pleasant personality, someone who looks relaxed and happy to be giving the interview versus someone who's extremely nervous and looks like he or she wants to run away from the room. Right? Signs of being a team player, someone who understands the job responsibilities of the people sitting on the interview panel and where they're coming from. Knowledge of the drug development process is crucial in gaining this skill. And self-learning. Candidates who appear motivated and show an obvious eagerness to learn more about the team, the product, and the company are high up on the list of selected candidates. So that is it. Before we leave this slide, I want to share something my mentor once shared with me. Remember, interviews are not exams. During interviews, the panel is actually trying to find reasons to hire you rather than eliminate you. That is why they called you for the interview. So relax and be yourself. Learning to network or learning to build a professional network is a crucial skill that all of us need to learn early on. Very few people are naturally talented at this. The rest of us just have to learn this the hard way. So hard work and making mistakes. But let this not deter you from networking, because this skill has the potential to completely change the landscape of your job search. So, how to build a professional network? The best way is to start by connecting with people in person. This means meeting them for coffee or stopping at their desk for a chat. Online, it means adding them to your network and sending small introductory messages. Talk about things that are important to you on social media, like your network, so that your network knows what your interests are, and people from outside your network will with similar interests may also start noticing you and connect with you. Attend virtual or in-person networking events. Prepare and practice a small introductory paragraph about yourself and your goals. Keep this elevator pitch, your business cards and resumes handy. When at events or workshops or conferences, try to talk and connect with people from areas that are different but connected to your professional area. This will give you new perspective, new ideas, and you will also help you learn about opportunities in related areas. Right? Also, network to find a mentor or coach who can help you in this journey. Also, stay on your network's radar. Offer your services for a professional work or voluntary basis. Connect over social causes with people. Again, I have touched very briefly on networking techniques, and I'm planning to do at least an hour-long webinar on this topic, so maybe we will talk about this again later. I included this slide to emphasize the importance of networking. As you can see, building a professional network has tremendous advantages, the best of which is you may land a job interview through your network. This has happened to so many people. I have lost count of people who have told me that they got an interview because someone in their network redirected them to that opportunity. So no matter how difficult this skill seems, it is totally worth investing your time into. Lastly, but most importantly, I cannot stress the importance of being mentally flexible during the entire job process. Early on, expect that your first or your second or sometimes even your third job may not be your dream job. It has happened to all of us. So always have plans B, C, D ready. This does not mean that you have to change tracks entirely or give up. It just means that you have to cast a wider net and grab opportunities that will help you to grow. So with that, this particular webinar comes to an end. I do have webinars on other topics lined up that I will be hosting soon via UpskillRx. UpskillRx is also coming up with an online course series and a podcast series where I'll be interviewing some experts. So stay tuned on that. Feel free to join the UpskillRx WhatsApp channel to receive free update on these upcoming events. Or you can just visit my website for that. So that is it for today. Uh, I had an amazing time talking about these topics, and I hope this was enjoyable for you as well.